Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't speak until you respond. Awa. Nna ke a gana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And part of the reason why I insist is because Luvani lied to me. She said, listen, this is going to be great for you to do. People are interested to hear what you have to say. And then I got here and I listened and I thought, why does she have me on a speaker's list? Everybody's covered everything that I wanted to say. And it's important. And she didn't tell me I was lost. So Fulu, I appreciate you getting everybody up and at least a bit of blood flow and to listen to this Rastafarian cause problems within the actuarial profession. That's why I have this job. But thank you for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. I wanted to, my presentation is only 6 slides, so don't panic. And the reason I have it is because my office told me, Nthato, you're going to speak at an Asaba conference. You can't go without a presentation. So they made it and made me bring it. So the only reason I'm showing it is that if there are pictures, it's clear that I had the presentation up. So I actually wasn't intending to use the presentation fully, but they made me do it. And I listened to my team. Allow me to just say a few things before I actually start the presentation, because I've been sitting and listening, and there are a number of things that people have said that I believe, but it's not me, it's the mic. No problem. So I have a thing, I have a phobia of holding microphones. So the teacher in me, I always spoke without a microphone. So, but I understand. Professional now. I have to. So allow me to just touch upon a few things that I've been listening, and I just want to, they may have absolutely nothing to do with my presentation. Absolutely. Or they may have a lot to do with my presentation. To speak about transformation, and in particular, to speak about purpose, and how that meets profession. And I honestly feel that part of my presentation we can just leave alone, because there's been great nuggets and I've learned a lot in some of what other people have said. But I'm going to give you a bit of homework. The first one is, when you have an opportunity, look up the song called The Living Years by Mike and the Mechanics. It was released in 1988. Fulu, next time you hear that someone was at university in 1994, please don't say I wasn't born yet. It doesn't make them feel good when they have to come up here and speak, knowing that when I graduated from university, you were not born. So the song is from 1988. And it's about someone speaking about how they regret in terms of their communication with their father and so forth. But the reason I really like the song is because there are some parts of the song that speak to the issue of transformation and that are very apt, particularly in our country. Because there are certain things that for some reason we become incredibly sensitive in speaking about. We become very shy, we want to hold back, when actually being frank and speaking openly is part of what we need to do. Some of the issues that we are speaking about, some of the gaps, why does it take so long for us to qualify versus our white counterparts? Some of those issues have an origin, because as rightly articulated, there is absolutely nothing wrong with our intelligence. There's nothing wrong with our capability. But some circumstance, and I wish it was just in our minds, but there are some circumstances that actually play a role. Let me encourage you that when you have an opportunity, get your kids to read. Please do. Get your nieces, your nephews, get the next door neighbor kid reading. It is fundamental. It is incredibly, it makes a huge difference in people's lives. So when we speak about then transformation, some of the platforms, some of the foundations that are necessary are things like reading. Reading for meaning. You hear the stats all the time. How poorly our kids in schools are doing. But the thing that irks me around those stats is the fact that they only emphasize the 40% that can't read for meaning, but they don't emphasize the 60% that actually can read for meaning, if you catch my drift. So part of the issue that we were talking about with regards to transformation is the fact that it's also always very important to have the positive, not just the negative. So the mindset that we may have around qualifying, maybe we need to stop talking so much about that and start talking about the qualified and how they got there and the fact that they did do that. In 1986, Nomaswazi Mokonani Hassan graduated from university. I was 15. She graduated from university with a BA in communications at Hunter College in New York City. My mother graduated from university without a high school diploma or qualification. She didn't finish high school. But because there is something that speaks to when you reach a certain age, we now have it in this country, you are given leeway to be able to register. And depending on how you do, for instance, in your first year courses, then you are allowed to continue. So my mother took that opportunity and she graduated from college. That is the biggest gift she could ever give me. That is the biggest gift she could ever give to generations after her. Because by setting that example, she changed the trajectory of my family, my kids' futures. So representation does matter. It's very important. So when we talk about transformation, let's not get lost in the politics and the sensitivities. Let's speak about the real lives that matter as you actuaries build what you build, you model what you model, speak about what you do. Representation is important and it does matter. It's important when it comes to transformation that you become agents of change yourselves personally. Speak about transformation, speak about everyone else in the rooms that we will never sit in. I'm not an actuary, I'm not. But I need to tell you, I passed maths with an A. I did, and not maths in South Africa. I just need to put that out there, just in case, you know, exactly. So for me, it's important that when you are in those rooms, it's important that you speak about transformation. It's important that you ask questions around transformation because that's the only way it's going to happen. At some point, I'll get to the slides. I told you why the slides are there. I learned today about the Pareto effect and the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the imposter syndrome is real. It's not just in the actuarial science profession. It's real, but we all must work to overcome it. It's important. But I learned about those principles, and for me, I think part of what that speaks to is the fact that within transformation, there is so much more we can learn. Because what transformation brings for us is a variety of views, a variety of experiences, a variety of histories that make everything so much richer. You know, South Africans, we are a very proud people. In the middle of New York City, in a subway, if you've been to New York City, the subways are very loud when you're in the subway. But it's very quick to pick up an accent, which is from Soweto. And you're like, wena, nyakwazi mfowethu, and you go. So it's very important that we understand that learning and growing is part and parcel of what makes everything so rich. I already spoke about reading. I didn't know, Shiluva, that financial inclusion was a risk management tool. I learned that today. But I understand, given the high unemployment in our country, and given the very high unemployment amongst the youth. So when people keep talking about this time bomb that we are sitting on, I now understand it better, because I now understand that for us to actually deal with that, mitigate that risk, we have to make a change in terms of how we deal with our youth, and in particular, how we make them part of the mainstream in terms of including them within the financial world that we're in. Societal stability, what does it look like? And often we don't necessarily ask ourselves that. It has to look like our country in all aspects, not just in some. It has to in all aspects, and that's part of transformation. Mango, I have to tell you, my brother, I learned something today why my claim was repudiated. Many years ago, so prior to my leaving for the United States, I was raised by my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. I went everywhere with her. I was literally her handbag. So if my grandmother, she was the last of 6 children, she was the only girl. So whenever she visited her brothers, between Brakpan and Heidelberg and Soweto, I learned all those places, which is why I ended up with girlfriends in. No, that's not part of the speech. So I used to go with her everywhere. So I learned part of my heritage and my background is a little complicated. I have a friend whose name is Desmond. He works for the ACCA. When you see him, tell him to stop giving me such a hard time about my background being more colorful than his. But nonetheless, so my grandmother was my mother. So much so that I referred to my mother as Ausi and referred to my grandmother as Mama, because she raised me from birth. And so when I was old enough and was working, I took out won't tell you which company, but I took out a policy that was to cover her. She passed away in 2000. I was still in the US. I had to come back. And when I came back, I went and claimed, and my claim was repudiated. And at the time, I was livid, and I didn't understand why. And the reason I was given was, there is no way she could have been your mother. She was too old. And I thought, yeah, she was my grandmother. But for some reason, it was not an insurable interest at that point. But I learned about that, and I've done better. Let me get to my presentation. I'm going to also implore you to be impatient about transformation. We are too comfortable with the status quo. In the impatience, I want us to learn to act and not just talk. So in the intro, Fulu spoke about the many years I spent working for the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. My team said not to even mention the name of the program that I used to work for and on, because that program was born the same year as SAADP. And the difference in terms of how that program has progressed and the work it has done in transformation is very different from what SAADP has been able to do. So they said, if you do that, we're going to tell the board and you're going to get fired. So I looked around the room and I saw one board member, and I said, I'm not mentioning it because that's going to get me in trouble. But the impatience need not be seen as negative, because what I'm asking us to do is we must act. And one of the things that I will speak about is the fact that action, no matter how late, makes a difference. there is such an underestimation of the power of getting started. I was talking to Mohammed about certain things, and one of the things is we want to wait till all the things are aligned. The stars are aligned, the weather is good, the money's good, everybody agrees, we are all and then we want to get started. That's too late. The best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. That was the best time. 25 years ago. The next best time is now. So to keep waiting for the perfect moment is problematic. So part of finding your purpose, as I hear speakers speak about, is you can start even now. Asking the questions, interrogating, introspection, that's part of how you begin to find your purpose. I know I may not look like it, but I was a very good soccer player. No, for real though, no jokes. No, seriously guys, no. I was a very, very good soccer player. How do I know how good I was? It paid for my high school education. I went to a private high school in the United States called the Petty School in Hightstown, New Jersey. The first year I went there, it's because some kid dropped out a week before school started, and then I was given the opportunity to attend. My mother didn't know how she was going to pay for that as a single mother, but somehow she decided this is an opportunity that you need to take. So I started at the school. A week into school, I went to soccer practice. The first team soccer coach, this was in grade 10. The first team soccer coach, when I approached him, he said, we already selected our team 2 weeks ago. You need to go play junior varsity soccer. And I said, I have not played junior varsity soccer since I was in 8th grade. He looked at me and said, this arrogant kid with an accent, let's see what he has to do. So that day we played a match, a scrimmage as they call it, inter-squad match. I scored 4 goals. He looked at me and said, come back tomorrow. He thought it was a fluke. The next day, he said, let's have a scrimmage before we start. I scored 2 goals. He told one of the seniors, unfortunately, he had lost his spot. So I was not a very popular kid after that. But nonetheless, I had the opportunity. So after that, I got a scholarship. After high school, I went to university on a soccer scholarship, 4 years. So I was fortunate enough that my mother didn't have to pay for my varsity because I don't know how she would have done it. Because I got an opportunity, because I got that. So I was a very, very good soccer player. But then I come home and what do? Instead of going to play soccer, I decide to go to school. And I decide to coach basketball. If you grow up in the US, that becomes almost your second nature. So for me, being able to pivot becomes one of the most important things around transformation. We must be able to change with the times. We must be able to change with the narratives because those will never stop. And so we must be able to adjust and not necessarily be one-dimensional. So the issue of purpose for me becomes very, very important in understanding that it will continuously make its way to the fore. You will find it. It will become obvious. But it means you must have a very welcoming approach towards being able to pivot and be able to find that. So let's look at my presentation a little bit because then you can say you saw what my presentation actually looked like. So my team said one of the things that we have to really be clear about is that transformation is not accidental. It's intentional. It is by design. And then the question becomes, in many ways, how do we? Because we are all basically in uncharted territory around how we transform. Our country is like no other. In the year 2000, I was invited to speak at the then Rao University. Fulu, don't do that again. That's my alma mater. Thank you very much. I was invited to come speak on Why transformation rather than revolution? Because that's the path our country had chosen. It's not by accident that we are where we are, because the path we chose meant certain things were not going to be done. It's a fact. We don't need to hide from it. You see, a revolution, a revolution, a revolution changes fundamentally everything. Everything, not some things, everything. And so we speak about the issue of land today in South Africa as a challenge. It's because we did not have a revolution. A revolution would have completely overhauled things. Now, I'm not saying it's either good or bad. I'm saying that's the path we chose. So having chosen that path, it's important that we understand, therefore, we must be intentional to overcome the limits that not having a revolution has been placed in front of us. And so it cannot be by accident. Is the actuarial profession transforming by design or by accident? Has the progress been intentional? Are we expecting change without investing in it? What does our current pace of transformation say about us as a profession? Many years ago, before Siya Kolisi is the renowned, much celebrated captain he is today, there was an investment. There was an investment that took him out of where he was with his grandmother to put him in a school where he would have the opportunities. There was an investment. So none of what we need to do will happen by accident. It needs to be intentional. So in the rooms that we are not in, that needs to come through. That this is not going to happen by accident. It's important. I press things. You see, that's why I don't do slides. SAADP's role since 2003 has been to be a strategic transformation intervention. Mohammed, I don't know about that stat of 80% of our SABA members being alumni of SAADP. I don't know. That's what they say. I don't know. We'll have to verify that. But I'm sure as we speak, there are a number of SAADP alumni in the room. It's more than a bursary provider, it's a pipeline development project. It's that engine that drives part of that. One of the things that makes that a huge difference is the fact that we are looking at school outreach, meaning informing youngsters beforehand and trying as much as we can that they know what an actuary does and not learn when they're doing VAC work. And we're hoping that happens while they're in high school so they can make the decision early on. We provide quite a bit of support in terms of university. That last tier part, we still don't have it quite yet, and I'll speak to that a little bit about the thoughts and the ideas that I have and that are what I've seen. Transformation outcomes have been deliberate, not accidental. So I looked at our stats and our what is it called, database. 498 of about the 800 odd students that have been supported by SAADP since 2003 are members of ASA in one capacity or not, or another, designated, undesignated members. 498. Okay, let me say that again. 498 of SAADP's sponsored and supported students or people have in one way or another become members of ASA. Thank you for that, Fulu. I hoped that applause would be louder, but it's okay. The reason why I'm mentioning that is not to gloat or to say anything. It's to say, when you have intent, success tends to follow. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week, but intent also does not speak to a time frame. Intent speaks to an outcome that you are constantly looking for or are trying to pursue. So if what we are wanting is a transformed profession that represents the demographics of South Africa, we must be very intentional about it, and therefore understand that we need to continuously work towards that outcome, however long it takes. The issues that have caused what we deal with are generational. So please forgive me if I am very skeptical about the fact that within my generation we will see that transformation happen. What we do need to see are the fundamentals in place to ensure that within a couple of generations that has happened. So it has to be deliberate and not accidental. Support for Black actuarial students must grow and not decline. And these are a few things that we believe that the profession must do. Many corporates, many organizations, they do their bit. They do get involved. However, one of the things that we have to avoid, and one of the things that I hope you are able to ask in the rooms that we are not, is about how intentional that contribution is. Whether it's to make sure that we tick the BEE box, we tick the EEE box, or whatever the case might be, or is it about true and proper transformation? And are we really, really intentional? So lastly, transformation is a shared responsibility. It doesn't rest with one. So some of the questions and some of the discussions earlier, I felt, they had to have this guy speak last, right? After all the very good discussions, now I certainly hope people are not looking at SAADP as the cavalry, because we're not the cavalry. And it's not coming. We are the cavalry. And therefore, we must shape this process together. We must work together in all our capacities. I heard some of the challenges and some of the questions, and I think Arthur earlier on spoke about, there was a question on, are you a mentor? Are you helping someone? What is it in your space, in your capacity, that you are able to do to make the difference? Because I am telling you now, it will make a difference. If we are looking for the Big Bang Theory type of change and difference, we're going to wait a while. But if we are looking for small, incremental change, we will see it. Because 1% change every day, 1% change every day is much bigger than you trying to force a 50, 60, 70% change. It has to be intentional. It has to become part of our lifestyle. SAADP remains committed, so this is where I was told I must pitch, so I'm going to pitch. We are not short of students who are interested in sitting where you are. We are not short of those with the interest, the willingness, the desire, the academic ability to be where you are. What we are short of is funding. We are never in a situation where we have to say we have funds and not enough students. So in the rooms that you sit in the conversations that you're having, please share that SAADP remains committed over 20 years plus to continue to be intentional and do what it is that we do. It's important because that's part of what's going to make a difference. Last but not least, in order for this idea of a very transformed profession begins to take more effect, and I think I liked what I heard the other speakers say, can we not pretend that there has not been change? That sometimes irks. There has been. But the fact of the matter is it is slower than we would like, yes. And yes, it's not as much as we would like, but there has been. And on the basis of that, we need to then continue to work, because otherwise we would still be needing to try and find solutions. So for me, one of the things that is very, very important for us to come across and be able to deal with is the fact that it's going to take everyone. The old adage that it takes a village is not just a cliche. It really does take a village. And it's important that our shared responsibility is carried by everyone. I've had calls after the ASA convention, Michelle, last week, and a couple of people called me and said, do you not have students that are graduating? We need to place them by the 1st of December. We have these spots open. And I, I have to be, I don't have to be diplomatic here. I can speak to you because we're engaging in discussion. But I had to be diplomatic with them because I couldn't tell them. I had to say, unfortunately, we don't, even though we do. And the reason I did is because they were not interested in making their investment, but they were interested in getting the dividends. And it can't be. So that shared responsibility rests with all of us. In our little way, in our little corner, we need to be speaking, we need to be behaving, we need to be insisting on being part of the solution and not just talking about the problem. So for me, if you take anything away other than the 2 homeworks that I gave you, I think we will be okay. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And if we understand that qualifying is a marathon, then we must also understand that transformation has to be a marathon. Otherwise, it's not real. It will be very artificial, and we need it to not be artificial. I would never put my picture up on any presentation. That is entirely my team. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Want to take 1 or 2 questions?
Okay.
Just short.
Apparently, I have to take questions. 1 or 2 questions. 4, 5. I saw these 2 gentlemen with, yeah. 2.
I will start. Thank you, Nthato. I think that
said
was
2.
insightful.
Okay.
I think that was a very insightful presentation. I think I have 2 questions. The first one, from your experience as the director of Nation Projects or Transformation at SAICA, what would you say SAICA did differently compared to what ASA is doing when it comes to transformation? Because I think we can all agree that SAICA is far ahead when it comes to transformation than us. The second question has to do with SAADP. UJ has been offering actuarial science for the longest time now. I'm a product of UJ. So I want to know why UJ is not included in your bursary.
No, don't worry. I'm here. Don't worry. Let me start with the UJ aspect. As you know, it's my alma mater. Well, Fulu, Rao became UJ.
I wasn't born.
I'm just saying. So my son graduated from UJ. My niece graduated from UJ. So it holds a very special place in my heart. A decision was made long before I arrived to only work at those 3 universities, Wits, UCT, and UP. That is about to change. The next university to possibly have a program is likely to be UJ. Our meeting this morning with UJ to take discussions further so I can have something to take to the board, unfortunately was rescheduled. So the decision is unfortunately one that has hampered our ability to grow the numbers in a way that I think we have the possibility to do, because UJ, Stellenbosch, Northwest, and University of the Free State are the other 4 ASA accredited universities. And I've never understood why SAADP was not at all 7 universities. But that process is beginning as soon as we can. What is SAICA doing that, dare I say, the profession is not doing? Because I don't think the responsibility rests with ASA at the door. I think it rests with all of us. The major difference is what I was talking about, the collaborative aspect of tackling transformation. The CAs took it on as a profession. So the universities became part of the solution. The profession itself became part of the solution. From individual to corporates, they became part of the solution. And then obviously the mother body itself then made sure that it was able to bring everybody together. So those elements made sure that today, whereas SAADP is sitting with, okay, SAICA is sitting with what you would, and everybody would look at and say, better numbers, so to speak. But, it's important to understand that it's the collaborative aspect, shared responsibilities, and taking that to the fore. The model that they have in the program that they run is that of shared risk, shared reward. And I think that has made a huge difference in terms of the pace and the ability to have funding. A board member who's here will understand one of the issues for me is our reserves. And yet they sit with reserves that are close to over 100 million in reserves. And that money doesn't come from thin air. It means the profession has made that investment to say, we will continuously make that. So I think that's where the major difference, in my view, is between where we are and where they managed to get in the last 20 odd years.
I know you said you're not going to be diplomatic in this platform, so please continue in that vein. You seem to have a formula that works, right, albeit not perfect. Corporates claim to be working hard to advance EE outcomes, but they're not putting in the investments that's required. Why are you not the go-to place for these corporates in terms of funding and pipeline? To me, it seems like the partnership should be a no-brainer.
Thank you for that. I love the fact that you challenged me not to be diplomatic as I answer the question that potentially has me fired, but that's okay. Like Mango, I'm good. I'm good. I like the gypsy description, but to answer your question, why are they not doing it? I'm not being diplomatic. Honestly speaking, it's 2 reasons, in my view. The first one, we as SAADP are responsible. I think we as SAADP, in the manner in which we were created and the manner in which we were supported in our infancy, and not making the transition to a program such as the one I say next door, that the accountants made. The way we were created was outside our mother body. That wasn't the best thing to do, because it meant you didn't have necessarily the clout and the support in a way that you should. Trust me, to that extent, we sit on the transformation committee of ASA. We have conversations. The study that they're we are involved. However, how we were created, in my view, created the problem. We were outside of the profession when we Granted, the reasons were what it was. And the way we were funded in our infancy meant we didn't have to come to the profession to ask for funding, which I could understand, because at that point it was, I'm not so sure if this profession will support what we're putting out there, so we will make sure that the money is there anyway, so that we do it. But that in itself was not necessarily the best thing, because what it did is it created a particular way of operating, which we are desperately trying to change, right? That's why we have a new logo. That's why we are very present in social media. That's why we are approaching everyone. And we are slowly beginning to have those conversations with many corporates. So that's number one. Number two, I'm not sure that many corporates have seen transformation as an imperative. They've seen it as a reason to tick the box, but not as an imperative. An imperative which needs the investment to make the difference. So for me, those two reasons, put them together, unfortunately, you have a perfect storm for what you describe. That if we have the formula, if we have some way of working, be it not perfect, why are we not the go-to? But we're working hard to change that. And we're very happy that Old Mutual Insure has joined us and is going to be putting through bursaries. So slowly but surely, it's happening. And we hope that that growth is a little bit quicker. Otherwise, I've got a problem. I've got 2 more years to make that change.
Okay, let me make it quick. So it's just, I think it's more related to what you just explained now. I hope the word I'm about to mention is not the one that you were told not to mention in boardrooms. So there was a program ran by SAICA, but kind of dependent, but was part of SAICA. It's called Tutuga. Good, okay, that's the one. So this program, it's more like SAADP, except that it's part of SAICA. So what that program did, it went to high schools, identified talent, black talent there, and then brought them to camps, teach them maths, motivated them, got them into the SA route. And today, I want to tell you something. Today, all my friends that I have, all of them, they are CAs. None of them is an actuarial person. And all these people, I've met them via that program. In fact, one of the programs that I heard about actuarial thing was from that program. Nowhere else. And it was a pipeline for CAs and all of that. So my question for you, sir, is that as SAADP, do you have these conversations? Are you trying to push for this within that body? For us, I talk too much. And I'm not scared of very, very, very uncomfortable questions. I'll ask it. If you like, you can throw me out. I'm fine. I'll ask those. Do you have those conversations within SAADP to say, we need to understand that developing an actuarial person, you are developing a human being here. You are not developing some machine or robot. So you need to start this thing from the root level. You need to start from high school, develop this person, walk them through varsity, walk them through everything until they become qualified. Otherwise, we are working on a path of accidental transformation, which is something that by the time I'm your age, I will probably be still talking the same language that we're talking now. So do you push for that? For me now, you see now, this is my first convention. And from now going forward, I'll be a problem here until they throw me out. Because I will say these things. Inside here, we will also raise those uncomfortable questions. If the people are uncomfortable, it's fine. Because we are here to, this life thing, to make a difference in people's society, in our society, in fact, in people's lives and everything. So we can't say we are actuaries and we are removed from society. We are actuaries, we are not concerned about transformation. So we will raise this, but I want to know from your guys' side, do you raise these questions there? Are you pushing for these things to happen so that we actually see this transformation and not be a rhetoric that is out there and we come here, we eat, it's nice, and then that's it?
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And then this is the last question, ne? So I can go after this. 2 seconds. The answer is yes. To the extent that we now have an MOU with SAICA, working with Tutuka, to ensure that our pipeline from school level happens properly. We've got a maths program that's going to be starting in the East Rand. I'm forgetting specifically the name of the school, where we are starting just a different way of approaching mathematics. We now go to all the psycha camps, the Tuka camps, because the student that is there is the very same student that could potentially be an actuary. So we work together. We are starting to run a number of programs. There's a program we're running in the Northwest through the Royal Bafokeng Holdings that we've partnered on, because obviously the way they've done it. So the way we are beginning to do it is understanding that we're not going to be able to walk through this journey alone. We are having conversations with ASA around what does the relationship really look like? What must it look like to be able to continue to contribute meaningfully to this process of transformation? So to answer your question, we are doing all of that, and we are doing it very actively. Unfortunately, for a number of years, there had been a decision to desist from being able to do that. So Tutuka was designed specifically to take from cradle. I was told never to say to grave again, but I just did. It was to take you from cradle to being a CA and understanding. And it's pretty much the approach that we are also now taking, because we understand that the development of that pipeline is incredibly important. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.